What is to niche down? In ministry, this means who is it that God has called you to talk to. For an example, when we look at Daniel, whom we are still on a study of his ministry and branding, you see that he was called to serve the kings. He was called to speak to the kings. And it's funny how it came about, because at first he was actually traded. He was taken as a slave into Babylon to serve the king there as a slave. But because he knew who he was, and the gift that God has given unto him ministered to the kings, he ended up, showing his gift of prophecy through the post that God had allowed him to be, which somebody would say, if you are serving God, why must God allow you to be taken to be a slave somewhere else? So I do not know what is your situation. I do not understand what is your condition, but it may be that God has put you there for the people that you need to speak to. So when we're talking about niching in the ministry, we're talking about identifying people whom God has called you to solve their problem and begin to speak to them. So it's not easy at first to find people whom God has called you to speak to them, but the moment you go out there, you speak, people will begin to find you. So be consistent in the message that God has called you. It may not be understood by everyone, and at first it may look like nobody understands what you are saying at all, but be consistent, because as time goes on, people whom God has called you to, they will find you. And when they find you, they are going to find comfort. They are going to find solutions in the messages that you are giving. Hence, I always say, if you want to validate your gifting or your ministry, do not go to people whom you look up to, because those people, God has called you to go and draw from them. God has not called you to deliver to them. So it's only those ones whom God has called you to deliver to them who will understand your ministry and who can validate your ministry, because they have a problem you can solve. But if you go to those whom they can solve your problem, then they will not understand the problem that you are trying to solve, because it's, different strokes for different folks. So do not be shy about what God has called you to do. That thing that looks stupid to people, it will look very valuable to people whom God has called you for. For an example, I'm called to speak to pastor's wife, and it looks very controversial. It looks like, it's not real. It's not there. Like, what is she doing? Is she